Hello, everyone. Let me turn it so everyone can talk. I usually start these at 2:30. It looks like this one I accidentally scheduled for 2 o'clock, so I got it confused. All right, hopefully everyone can turn on their cameras and mics now if they want. Well, I'm glad all of you could join us. Apologize about the late start. I had assumed I scheduled this in at 2:30 as I usually do, but I scheduled this one at 2 o'clock accidentally. Maybe to get started, everyone can just put in the chat where they're coming from. And I'm gonna pull up this little slide deck I have and we'll just get started. Louisiana, it's awesome. Well, from the UK. Thank you for coming from such a distance. Jamestown, New York. Great. This is cool. It's cool to have so many people signing up and coming to these. Even 5 is it's a good number. Just to see, my name is Dave Olinger, and I am a director of digital strategy at a high school in Seattle, Washington. That means I take care of our technology and also our technology integrations. I'm also a MIE fellow and an MIE showcase school leader. That means the school that I work in has been identified as leading innovative digital integration in our schools. Our philosophy is really to use products that these students will use in their future. So industry standard products like Microsoft to deliver content learning. So they're building their digital skills in addition to their content skills. So I'm so glad you could join us. Today, I want to go through just 2 elements of the team's environment. And my goal on these sessions are to keep them really short. We don't have a lot of time. And so it's to give people just a little bit of insight into some of the new products, how they work, how they can be used for content learning, and hopefully answer some questions and show you some demos. So I put together 2 parts here. The first part is an app called Microsoft Classwork. This is Microsoft's response to educators, in some respects, asking for Microsoft Teams to act more like a traditional LMS system than Teams has. So this Classwork gives you the ability to create modules where students can find all the resources in one spot. It's to also create academic resources quickly and to organize things on current needs going on in the classrooms. They give you the ability to pin and unpin modules as you develop them, to curate resources for students into one spot, and ultimately it reduces the extrinsic cognitive load of learning, especially learning with technology. So let's get started. A show of hands, how many have used Microsoft Classwork? You can just raise your hand and raise your hand. How many of you are using Microsoft Teams assignments right now in your classrooms or in your organization? That's good. We got some people using the assignments, not many people using Classwork. Well, I think Classwork's a great addition, and I think it's an easy add-on to your workflow. So to give you an overview, and sometimes in these sessions, it's going to be helpful maybe to have your own teams opened up. As you can imagine, doing demos on Microsoft Teams education is challenging because, we oftentimes all my teams are populated with real students, so I can't really show their data. I can't really show the teams that are operating in our environment, but you can open up your teams. So to find classwork in a, Microsoft Teams for Education class team, you'll see a new tab called Classwork. This tab gives you the ability to create modules for students, and it lives right there where it says Classwork. So as you build these, you can just tell students to go to the Classwork tab, and they'll see their modules. When you create a new module, after you click Create a new module, you're going to get prompted to give that module a title and to give that module a description. Pretty basic stuff in your first, when you first start to make these. After you've given it a title and you've given it a description, you get to add assets to your modules. So what can be in these assets? Well, the assets can be files from your OneDrive or files from your Teams file folder, and you'll add those by clicking File. They can be assignments. This is one of the cool things is as you make assignments, you can put them in these modules. And the module could be a unit. The module could be a long-term project you're doing. But you can when you make assignments, you can add those assignments to modules, or you can directly create assignments within the module itself. Just like in Teams, you can add class notebook assets specifically to the module. So if there's a notebook page you want them to reference, that's easy to add by clicking that link. You can curate outside links from websites. In this case, this is one I've made for teachers to get AI tools that their students can use. And so I made a module with mostly outside links to various resources so students can have that, or sorry, our teachers can have that in one spot. You can also link a channel from your team. This is especially helpful if part of your assignment is to have a asynchronous conversation or to access things in a channel. I believe that teachers have been using channels in this sort of similar way that these modules and classwork are meant to address. So I think teachers have been using channels as sort of modules, but because of that linear nature and the inability to move things around, it's easy to have students get lost in channels when you're just posting things in channels. So modules in classwork gives you the ability to get around that. As I mentioned before, you can directly create new assets and assignments in the module itself. And I'm actually going to pull up Teams and we'll go through what some of these look like in a second. And then one of the cool things is when you make a module, you can develop the entire module before you publish it to the students. You also get the ability to move modules around. So if a certain module that you've been working on is front of mind, you can either pin that to the top or you can move it up and down so that students don't have to scroll through all the history of the modules that you've made. So that's a pretty important and cool element. What I'd like to do now, I'm just going to open up this specific classwork and I'm going to share this so you can see this specific thing as we look at it. Are there any questions right now? What you should be seeing now is the actual my actual teams and classwork. So to give you a sense of what this looks like, you know, when you land on a team, sometimes you land on the home page, which some people use, some people don't. You'll have your class notebook, and then you'll have classwork here. And what I love about classwork is it gives you this ability to create all these resources for your students to access. In this case, this is one I built for our teachers. So this is the AI for students tools, and I was able to curate all of these resources into one spot for the teachers that they can access at any time. And I've done that for several other different assignments. I can add wakelets to it or Word documents. And since I don't give assignments to teachers, there's not a lot of assignments here. But in these modules, whatever unit you're teaching, you can have everything you need in this one spot. You can publish them, you can edit them and unpublish them so that students, so that you can manage access to these resources. And you can edit them as they go. So you can move things around in each module so that it's organized in a way that makes sense for your class. Once you've made a module, you can actually move it around up and down so that it makes sense for how you're working and makes it easy for students to find those things. My understanding now is that after you've created these modules, my understanding is that coming soon, Microsoft's going to release the ability to reuse modules. So you don't have to keep recreating these every time for every class. Any questions?
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
How do I
You,
say your name? Neelan? Nellen?
Nalan. Nalan.
Nalan.
Mm-hmm.
Nalan.
So, a fellow MIE fellow with you. I represent the Gulf Coast.
Oh,
So,
great. Glad
but
to
I'm
have you here.
excited to hear about the stuff that's going on with Classwork. This is the first time for me paying attention to it. I guess when I think about it, I'm just thinking about videos, especially when I hear module, I'm hearing video assignments. At least that's, what my mind automatically goes to.
Mhm.
But it looks like you don't have to have videos. Like you're just sharing here, you can just put links in there. I can put Wakelet collections in there or
That's right.
whatever it is. So I don't have to, is it still self-paced? Can I still do it that way? I mean,
Yes. Yes, you
okay.
can do it any way you want to.
Yeah.
I think they use the word module, and who
Mm-hmm.
knows how Microsoft comes and lands on those. I might use the word unit in my class, or I
Mm-hmm.
might, or project, or but they use the word module, and that's I guess more broad. But as I see it, for I do a lot of training on software. So for me, I target specific softwares. And what I
Mm-hmm.
really like about it is that I can just keep these links up to date as technology changes, everything changes. It gives me the ability to edit this. Now, the students, in this case, teachers, but the students can't edit this themselves. This is totally controlled by the educator. So
Mm-hmm.
you have full control of how this looks when the students look at it, what gets added to it. And it integrates with all those features that Teams does such a great job with. But I
Mm-hmm.
think one area where Teams lacked, because it's more of I think it was built primarily for business.
Yeah.
I think one of the areas that lacked was that sort of that ease of the linear lists that modules is answering. And this
Mm-hmm.
gives it more of a look of like a Canvas or a traditional LMS system.
Gotcha. Do you do a lot of videos with your trainings?
I do. I do videos with my trainings quite a bit. I use and you'll
Mhm.
see as we go on in this slide deck, I use GIFs a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I use videos quite a bit. I try to keep them very short, unless
Yeah.
I'm recording a session like this.
Hmm.
But I try to keep things as tidbit as possible because most people don't want to
Right.
watch an intro video and then get the one little nugget they're looking for. But
Do
I
you
use
just
video quite a
record it
bit.
here? You record within Teams and then post this to your module, or you do something else like Flip or
I
Screencastify or something?
I use all of them, but my
Mhm.
go-to is a product by TechSmith. It's called
Mhm.
Snagit.
Oh,
It's like a snipping tool, but
okay.
gives you the ability to do quick 30-second videos as well of screen share. And then TechSmith also has the product Camtasia that is
Camtasia.
great. That's
Mhm.
great for, doing demos on computers.
Yeah.
Fong asked a question, said, what's the benefit of using Classwork compared to OneNote? I
Yeah.
always use OneNote in class notebook. It's similar. The difference is that, for example, you can put class notebook pages within your module. While OneNote, you're kind of looking at a notebook, and let's say let's say I have a class notebook that I have embedded all these YouTube videos in. That's one way of curating YouTube videos. Another way could be Wakelet, and another way could be this Classwork module. And I guess, Fawn, to answer your question, I believe that this module itself is more kid-friendly. When you design a OneNote page, especially a like let's call them a one-pager with multimedia on it, when you design it, it makes sense to you more than might to a student. So this sort of linear accordion-based module is going to be much more familiar and easier for a student to navigate, I think, than per se a OneNote. But a OneNote notebook can look very similar to modules. All right, so I think modules are pretty self-explanatory once you start to use them. I think they're pretty user-friendly. So I'm going to move on to some of the features that I think are helpful in assignments that I have prepared for us today. Does that sound good? Is everyone ready to move on? So Teams assignments, some of the things I want to hit here is the new integration to put images and GIFs in the assignments as you create them. Some of the new features with scheduling and calendaring in Teams assignments. The new student view that is available. Insights in assignments, the OneNote class notebook integration, and the learning accelerators in Teams. When you make a new assignment, over here, these are some of the first things you see when you open it up. The scheduling at the top, choosing the different classes that you can put each assignment into, choosing if you want it to go to all students or individual students. This new feature of selecting a module. So if you already have a module made and you want that assignment to appear in that module, you can actually do it from the assignment page. You can also make assignments in modules. So you can do it on both sides. We can add rubrics, which that's an old feature, but a good one. You can add points. And then one of the features I think that don't get used by at least teachers I work with a lot is tags. Tags are really great because it makes searching for things a lot easier. So if you can start to add tags, I think you'll find that feature helpful, especially if you're giving a lot of assignments. One of the key features that I think everyone needs to know about is doing your per class defaults so that you're not, let's say you have a time you always like to be submitted, or if you always want to make sure they're adding students that have come into the class late. Um, the class defaults gives you the ability to make it so that the defaults on this, that there's defaults that always make sense in that class, so you don't have to edit them. It's a time saver. So to do that, you click that gear box in the upper right-hand side on assignments, and you can choose what time you want your assignments to always be due. You can choose on the calendar feature. Now, there's a new calendar feature, and one of the pain points teachers are having is that the class assignments, so Teams assignments, that tab is managed completely by the educator. So the students have no ability to toy with that, to make it their own. So now when you make an assignment, you can actually make it go to the students their Outlook calendar, so they can add notifications to it if they want. They can modify it if they want. So when you put students only, or you can put it to the students and the teacher calendar, this gives the students the ability to manage their time on their own calendar a little bit with the assignments that you're populating there. I think it's a really cool feature. At O'Day, we require all the teachers to put all the assignments into the students' calendar so they have some ability to manage that themselves. You can manage notifications. You can manage notifications where each one of those go to. So generally we'll post to the general channel when you make assignments, but you can choose different channels for assignments to go to. There's some new features with the parent guardian email that you can turn on and off. I think that's only really going to be if your organization is using school data sync. from your SIS to grab those parent and guardian emails. What this does, it sends a weekly email about assignments to parents. That can be very useful. This feature, this next feature here, the new students, this is if a student transfers into your class. If you have this turned on, which I recommend you do, they'll get all the assignments that have been previously assigned, so you don't have to reassign them every single time. That's been a pain point for a lot of our educators. And the last one is if you want your class to be fun or not. If you want your class to be fun, you can leave the fun turn-ins on. But if you kind of like to make your class not fun, you can turn it off so there's no celebrations when they turn in work. It's just a funky feature.
That new student one, you do that. Can you do that after the fact? I haven't done it in a long time.
No, the new student one, you have to have that turned on when
Okay,
you make the assignment.
gotcha.
But if you turn it on in your defaults now, any new students that come in moving
Got it.
forward will get all those assignments. But that's a per assignment thing, right? So I might make an assignment that is, bring in, tissues for, or bring in something for a project you're doing. And maybe students that come later don't need that assignment. So that one I might turn it off, but I might turn it on for an assignment that has a lot of OneNote features. That might be a long-term project. So when that student comes in, they get that assignment. I tend to think it's best to leave that default on at all times, just because. I'm going to assume everybody here has created an assignment before. This is just going through when you first open it up, how you create an assignment. One of the things to be mindful of is it's always good to have if you teach multiple classes that you might be sending one assignment to the same classes at once. It's always good to have that one class that you always send the assignments from. So I'm always going to use my first period class to make assignments, which means that I'll have all of the content for OneNote in that class. Because you can export it to any other class, but to have that one class that you know you're going to make all the assignments from helps you make sure all the assets are in that team when you're making the assignment. One of the new features they've added is adding the ability to add a GIF or images to assignments. In this one, I'm demoing adding a GIF into an assignment. So especially if you have a little tech tool, you want to make a little quick video that the students will be able to watch in the assignment tab, you can do that now. You can make GIFs, you can make images that can be part of the explanation of the assignment. Adding a rubric, one of the features of Teams assignments is to create rubrics in Teams and to add those rubrics to your assignments. This can make grading a lot faster. As you know, rubrics also help communicate, benchmarks better, but then also give the teacher the ability to grade using that rubric. And that's, of course, down here, this little grid is a rubric. You can make new rubrics in here, and you can also assign rubrics that you've created already. So it will remember your rubrics as you go on. Scheduling assignments. You have the ability to, some teachers love to get all their assignments done over the weekend or, before school starts. I used to teach a digital photography class, and I had all the assignments for the entire year published when I started the class because I like to keep a good clip on it. So, you could even have all the assignments for your entire class made at one point, and you have the ability in the scheduling of the assignment to have the scheduled date. So that's the date that the students will see the assignment. The due date, that's the date that they see that the assignment is due. And I don't know how you teach, but I'm always like, of course you have another day to do your assignment. So then you can have a close date when you actually won't accept the assignment anymore. And that will lock all the assets, including OneNote, and not give the students the ability to submit anything anymore. So, if let's say you have a week grace period for all your assignments, you can build that in. And then you can be really firm with your students saying, hey, this is the due date. Of course, you had some extra time. And that close date gives you the ability to kind of, I would say, fairly and unanimously say, hey, that's my boundary, or that's the end of this, until the administrator tells you you have to accept it. So One of the new cool features is video feedback. There's a little icon now, a little video icon. So you can leave video feedback on assignments to students. That's a really cool new feature in Teams as well, in Teams assignments. How many of you guys are using Insights right now? Are you familiar with Insights? Do you know how to find it on your team? I'm looking at you, Nilan, because I can only see you. So you're nodding, and I'm like, all right. So Insights, I think
haven't
is
used it much. It's a little tricky for me still, and I haven't really jumped into it. But I know where it's at, and I know what it's good for.
yeah. I think Insights is one of the more powerful tools that are underutilized by educators right now. I think Microsoft has finally wrapped its head around how this can be useful. And if you go through and kind of mash the keys in there, I think you're going to find a lot of pretty interesting data on your students and how they're working. That can help. It can help. This one was new. I found this one out today. I didn't even know about it. That they have weighted grading categories now in Teams. So you can create your own grading categories. So let's say you've decided that you want to use this as your, you know, where students check their grades and everything. You can now create these grading categories. So when you give assignments, you can attach these categories to assignments, and the grade book that's attached to Teams will do percentages. So that's kind of cool. We use, I won't have our teachers do it because we use Power School for our, managing all of the grading categories and grading assignments. But for those who want to use Teams, you have that ability. And then you also have the ability to do grading schema. So you can tell it exactly what an A is supposed to be, what a B is supposed to be. And so it's starting to operate like a full LMS system. Those are two new features that may be useful to your organization. I don't foresee us using these right now, but I see the use in them, especially if they can start connecting back to an SIS and do a two-way data sync there. And then there's two new features that I'll share my presentation with everybody. But if you're familiar with Mike Tholfsen, there's these things called learning accelerators. And the two of them are Reading Progress and Search Coach. Reading Progress is a AI integrated tool that can help young readers or learning readers to read. There's all sorts of uses for it. For example, at the high school level, I have a biology teacher who uses it to help teach the lexicon of biology. So they'll have the students read passages from biology out loud, and Reading Coach will help them with pronunciation. It's going to help them understand these words a little bit better, especially if those words are very targeted to a certain lexicon or learning target. Reading Progress is also great for younger readers or people learning to read, as it will help with pronunciation. It's going to analyze when the student is reading the passage, what they're saying correctly and what they aren't. I've added this video here for those who would like to watch the video. It's 20 minutes on Reading Progress if this tool seems useful to you. And then the other one is Search Coach. And Search Coach is really trying to help students weed through the mess of internet data. So Search Coach is going to coach students on how do you assess if a certain search item is bringing back legitimate content or content that might be biased or content that might be completely illegitimate for what you're looking for. So those are two new tools that are in Microsoft Teams assignments. And that's basically the gist of what I wanted to go through today. I appreciate your patience. I came in 10 minutes late. If you attend any more of my sessions, that won't happen. I made a clerical mistake when I assigned these because my school day ends at 2:30, and it wasn't until some people were in the chat saying, "Is anyone coming?" I was like, "Oh, that's open. People are in here." So my school day hadn't really ended yet, so I just scheduled that incorrectly. So I'm generally more professional than that, but just slightly more professional than that. I'm going to throw in the chat here a link to my next session, which is actually going to be on using OneNote to teach research. I did a YouTube video on it a few years ago, and it's the only YouTube video that's got like 10,000 views. So this will be a good session for those who want to use OneNote to teach, I would call it traditional research. And then I will throw in a resource here for the for today's session. I'm going to put in our actual the presentation itself. And anybody has any questions, they can ask. I appreciate you attending. I'm trying to do these ideally twice a month. It's looking more like once a month, as there's some work that goes into preparing for them. And I am open to feedback. So if these are helpful, that's great. You feel free to share it with any colleagues that you think would be interested. And I'm gonna just share the link to this presentation I gave today here for those of you who would like to share it or use it. Great. Any questions, comments?
No, thanks for your time for today.
Milan, thanks for coming. Vaughn, thanks for coming. Thomas, thanks for coming. And I again apologize for being late. It won't happen again.
No worries. You can drop it in the drop it in the OneNote. Drop it in the team too, huh? In the MIEE team.
Yeah, I can put this in there as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Have a good night.